All right. Welcome everybody to our November, we're in November, our November Excel in Your Future PT Career series. This is hosted by Confluent Health. For those of you that this is your first time joining us, Confluent Health is a sort of family of brands of outpatient, mostly outpatient physical therapy clinics. And I know most of you, or not, if not all of you, are students of physical therapy programs, sort of looking at what's next in your career. The point of these every month is to draw attention to one specific area to hopefully help you navigate that, no matter where you land. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Doug Free. Doug is somebody that I trust immensely. He's a wealth of knowledge, and you guys are so lucky to hear from him today, specifically talking about interview tips and tricks. This is a big one, especially if you're in that last year or so of PT school and are ready to step into those interviews. Doug is located at RET, which is one of our brands in the Pacific Northwest, and specifically he is at our Mercer Island location amongst that region sort of area in Seattle. So I'm going to pass it over to Doug and let him share all kinds of good stuff with y'all.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate you guys having me tonight. A little bit background about myself. I've been with RET a long time, since 2001. Same location for all of that time frame as an outpatient practitioner and clinic director. A couple years ago, I started also doing regional director work, helping out another 5 or 6 clinics. The point of that is to let you know that I've done a lot of interviewing over the years and supported a lot of people along that process. Another feature that I've been involved with one of our local schools in the area is doing a mock interview project where we organize a bunch of therapists. We go down and we give each student a chance to practice interviewing, and then I go back and essentially give this presentation to the class. So hopefully you guys will find this worthwhile. Normally I'm in a live situation and I get a lot of questions, so please hit that Q&A button, and if anything pops up that you want to know more about, and because I'm used to answering a lot of questions to make this, like I say, a little more interactive. That said, let's see if I can find my PowerPoint and bring it up and get started on that. All right, so as an overview on the agenda, big picture goals is where we're going to start. What are we really trying to get out of this whole process of interviewing? What really matters all the way around? A lot of this talk is about being prepared for your interview in a lot of different ways, and what that looks like and how you can go about being efficient with that. I really want to emphasize being authentic and being your true self. I think that goes a long ways. Before you go into an interview, know what you need, what's important to you. We're going to talk a fair amount about that. And then I've got a slide with just some other tips and tricks, so some final details that I think are handy and helpful. And we'll go from there. All right, what is the goal of this whole interviewing process? Well, first of all, right, get a job, earn some money, pay off some loans, right? I think everybody on the call is at some stage along those lines thinking about how nice it'll be to earn a paycheck and to be able to do some independent things. But it's a whole lot more than that. What we really want to do with the interview process is find a good fit for both you and wherever you end up working as for the employer, whether that's a big hospital system or a small mom and pop outpatient clinic. We want you to it to be a good fit for you and as well as for the employer. And a little secret, right? The job market being what it is, the good news for you all is there's way more jobs than there are new grads. You're gonna get a job. It's not whether or not you are going to get work, it's whether or not you can find a spot that really fits for you. Now, sometimes people will say, hey, I really want this really niche thing. I want to work with a particular type of pediatric patient or particular neurologic patient, or I want to be with sports or, with the ballet. Sometimes those particular jobs are going to take a little longer to get to land and to be a part of, and it might take a little bit more work. But have faith, you will find work. There's far more jobs than there are employees right now in the physical therapy space. All right, how do we get there? What's the most important thing? I really think it's about being prepared. Like I mentioned earlier, we often do these mock interviews with these students, and they prepare them a little bit. I do a lot of interviewing for our organization, and it's you can tell who's prepared and who's been put themselves together and put themselves in a spot for success, and who hasn't. And it really does make a difference. I think it's important to be ready for the kind of questions we're going to ask. It's no real top secret what kinds of questions interviewers are going to ask. You go on Google and you say, hey, give me the top 10 or 15 interview questions these days, and you're going to get a nice list, right? Personally, I start with a softball question. I like to, much the way I do an evaluation. If I walk into a room and I'm going to evaluate a patient, I acknowledge that they filled out their paperwork and I thank them for that. But then I've just really open-ended question. Hey, how'd you end up here? Tell me your story. What can I do to help you out today? And I really like to start with open-ended questions with my patients. And I do the same thing with people that I'm interviewing. How did you get here in physical therapy? What's your story? I think most people have a pretty good physical therapy story on how they got there. Look at that. I capitalized therapy, but not physical. That's funny. All right. What are you passionate about? I'm, again, an open-ended question. I'm trying to get to a little bit more about you. Who are you? What is exciting about you? Tell me about a significant accomplishment. This is one of my favorite questions. I get a lot of interesting answers. What I'm trying to get out of people is something that you're involved in that was a big project or a big event, something that was a big deal for you. I've had people tell me about, well, not everybody's from the West Coast on the call, but there's a really long trail that goes all the way from Mexico all the way up to Canada through the western states called the Pacific Coast Trail. I had somebody tell me about their hiking trip that they did there, which takes weeks and weeks and weeks to do, and there's all kinds of interesting planning that needs to go on. I've had somebody tell me about when they were in high school and they were in charge of their cheer squad, and they made it all the way to nationals and they won the championship. And they start to also tell me about, I can dig a little sometimes, ask some questions like what went into that, what kind of effort and what kind of planning, what kind of how hard did you have to work, how much time and effort, how did you feel when you got there? And those are all really great questions for me to just to get to know somebody a little bit better. I also like to know about a difficult situation that somebody's had, maybe a coworker or a supervisor. The idea is to draw out maybe some challenges that you've had and how you responded to those challenges. What does a successful day look like? This can mean a lot of things. Again, kind of an open-ended question. I'm really trying to get at what drives you and what makes it at the end of the day, what does a great day look like for you? This is a question I like. What would your classmates say about you? It's a little bit like give me your 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses, but I think people are kind of artificial with that. And what I really want to know is a little more authenticity, right? And so sometimes if I say, what would your classmates say about you? I think people are a little bit more honest about that and a little more reflective. And I've gotten some real interesting answers out of that over time. This one's, I think, a really important question. What are your decision criteria, right? Is it all about salary? Do you really need something special with benefits? Do you need part-time work? Do you not own a car, so your commute is really important? You need to be on a bus line, right? Like it could be a lot of things. Everybody's got different things that are important to them, and so really knowing what those decision criteria are and being able to articulate those are really valuable. All right. The other thing I'd suggest is literally to practice interviewing. whether it's with a friend or a classmate, I think it's a really valuable thing to sit down and fill out, look up some of those questions, practice writing down some answers, ping another friend and go back and forth. Just get used to talking about yourself, answering some of those questions. I think it's a big deal. If you're really nervous about interview situations, maybe even go apply for some jobs you don't even necessarily want, but just for chance to practice interviewing. I've had a lot of people come in and do these mock interviews really, really well, and I've had other people that really struggled. Sometimes, if English isn't their first language, it can be a barrier. I've had people that just really weren't even, didn't know how to articulate their story about why even they chose physical therapy school, and it cleared that they were really nervous. So really a good idea to get some of those kinks out of the way. If you're doing a virtual or a remote interview, right? Like there's some real key things. Prepare your space, prepare your background, right? Either have a false background like I have set up, or make sure things are clean. I've had a lot of people do interviews in their car. They've got distracting stuff in the background. It's their, I'm trying to figure out what is that poster of in the background, or animals clawing all over them, just weird stuff, and it's distracting. And I would encourage you to be thoughtful about that. Location. I think again, make sure your physical situation's great. I wouldn't do it in a car. I would set yourself up with a good camera, a good desktop situation. Try and have the camera at eye level, right? I'm used to talking to my adult son, and he'll walk around and he'll have the phone way up high or way down low, and I get dizzy. That's fine for just BSing with your dad or your friend or whatever. But when you're doing an interview, really try to have your remote hardware set up properly. And finally, dress appropriately, right? Again, I've had people say, well, it's just a remote interview, it's just a virtual, I'll just show up in a t-shirt. And that's not really impressive. Even if what you're doing is maybe you're applying to a bigger organization like something involved with the military, the U.S. government, or a big hospital chain, and you're like, well, it's like a screening call with HR. That's not a big deal. Like, you never know what those people are going to think and what they're going to write down, or whether or not they're going to advance you through to the next level. So even at every stage, I would make sure that you're dressing appropriately for the interview. All right. What else? Tell me some more. I think it's real important to consider not just practicing some of those questions, but how you go about answering is really important. Sometimes I'm interviewing people and I'll ask them these open-ended questions, and I'm not really getting much out of them. I'm not getting much of a story. They won't really engage, and that's difficult for me. I don't really want to dig too terribly much. I want you to, I really want you to tell me a story, add some color, give me some depth, give me some insight into who you are, so I know if you're going to fit with us. Again, we really want to see your personality out of this, shine out of all of these interactions. I think it's important to feel comfortable talking yourself up. Some people are pretty humble, and that's great. But if you come off as just overly shy or overly tentative, if I don't believe in you, if you don't believe in you, why should I believe in you, right? I think it's okay to bring up negatives. I think it's okay to talk about difficult situations. Oftentimes, another question I'll ask is, tell me about a great supervisor, and then tell me about a not so great supervisor. Tell me about, again, back to the question about a difficult patient or a difficult coworker. But what I'm interested in is the context of how you overcame those situations. I remember one person telling me they had a really difficult boss. The boss didn't communicate with them in a way that worked well for them. And I've heard that story a lot of times, and most people say, oh, well, yeah, I gave notice and I found a job that was a better fit. And that's a fine answer. I remember this one young lady, and she said, no, it was really important to me to try to work through that. And we set up a time. I went to my boss and I said, hey, can I meet with you privately? And she went ahead and set up some time and explained how she felt, and and the boss was really impressed by that, and they were able to find a way to communicate better. And it still wasn't a perfect fit for her for a summer job, but rather than quitting, she really dug down, and that said a lot to me about how she would respond in my clinic. If for some reason she had a problem with me or anybody else that I work with, she'd be willing to dig in and try and fix it. And I just thought that was a great answer. Again, we know you're not perfect. We want to know how you're going to respond to challenge. And again, like I've been talking a lot about this being authentic. I've come to sort of believe that we all have a really good authenticity meter. We can really tell when people are being genuine and being honest, not truthful honest necessarily, but being honest, being a resonant between who they really are and sharing that, as opposed to saying one thing when they believe another. I think we can pick up on that vibe. I know that I'm actually not a very good lie detector. I struggled that with my kids, right? With they would give me a mistruth or whatever. I'm just I don't know if it's I'm on the gullible side or just on the trusting side, but I don't always pick up on when people are fibbing at me. But I can always tell when they're telling themselves a lie, when they're not resonating with themselves. And so as you go through this and you practice, what you want to say and how you want to say it, be genuine. Don't try to tell us answers you think we want to hear. Be genuine and consistent with what you really believe. I think it makes a huge difference. All right. How do we get there? Again, being prepared. This is a big one to me. I think making sure that you do a little research on the company and if possible, the interviewer. Most of the time I do an interview. I'm setting that up with the individual. They know who I am. They know the company I work for. A quick scan of our company website. You'll find my bio. Just a couple of paragraphs. You read through there and you get a little information about me, and come prepared with that. Come prepared with the size of the company. Come prepared with some other questions that you have about the organization. I think it shows that you're interested in the organization. You're interested in me by doing that homework, and I think that's really valuable. Again, bringing up information off their bio, again, just says that you really are focused on who they are. And, personally too, I'm a human being. I feel important when you come in and you ask me questions that are personal. I'm like, wow, this person's really interested in my organization and they read my bio, and like, that makes me feel good. I like that. Also, really asking questions about how things are run in the organization. And this is where you can get creative and ask all kinds of things that I think are super valuable, right? Like a real common question is, what sort of training do you have for a new grad? What do you like working? What do you like about working here? That's always one of my favorites. Again, I've been with the company a long time. I'm really proud of that. And people are like, well, why have you stayed so long? What is it about physical therapy in general that you like? What is it that has kept you tied to this company so long? And being ready to ask those kinds of questions and dig in a little bit on us and ask us those sorts of things, I think is great. I think being able to ask questions about how long people stay with an organization. Are you measuring your retention rate? What are you doing to engage your employees and to make sure that they stick around? What are your processes like for that? How successful are you with keeping people around? One of the things that we all know is it's expensive to lose someone and to have to replace them. From our perspective, it's very costly in dollars and cents. Costs money to run ads, costs money to do interviews, to bring somebody on. You have to gradually ramp up their schedule, right? So it's much, much, much easier, much less expensive, much better all the way around for us to retain our people. And I think those are really valuable questions to dig in a little bit. What are you guys doing to do that? How successful are you? I'm a big fan of doing charity work in our community. We've done a lot of things at our local company at RET for many years, whether it's food drives like we have going right now, or backpack drives, or we've done food kitchen support. We've done Earth Day. We've done a number of different things. I think that that says a lot about an organization and how involved they are in their community. Another one that I like, going back just a slide, is how involved is your organization in supporting each other? Do you have any charity, any outreach that you can do to support each other? Things like that. How do you guys take care of each other? How do you take care of the community? How do you take care of new grads? Those kinds of questions I think are valuable. I gave this its own slide, mentoring. I've not ever met a new grad that didn't ask about mentoring. I think having a great mentoring program is super important. At the same time, how you guys go about asking about it and digging, I think, makes a difference. I think on the one hand, it's really important that you come into an interview and into these kinds of questions, understanding you have a lot of knowledge, right? We know that you're not going to graduate without a certain amount of skill set. We for the most part know what you know. Most of us that are hiring have hired lots of people. We've taken a lot of student interns. We know about what you know, but you need to come in and be proud of that and understand that you have a certain value and a certain amount of capability. If you come in real uncertain and you say, hey, I'm not sure I understand this whole physical therapy thing at all. I really don't think I got a great education. Can you really hold my hand for the next 6 months to a year, right? That's a very different conversation from, hey, I'm really proud of the work I've done. I've made a lot of advancement in my clinical education. I'm really feeling strong, but I don't want to just be okay at this. I want to be great. How can you help me going from being an okay new grad to being great? What does that pathway look like? Right? And just right there, that sounds a whole lot different and feels a whole lot different. Again, kind of to sum it up, are you tentative? Are you nervous? Are you uncertain about yourself? Or are you excited to be the best? Right? That's where and we know that new grads coming in aren't going to be experts. That's all right. But what's your attitude about growth and getting better? Resumes. I think a lot of work can go into a resume, and you can put a lot of information down in there. But I think you got to be careful about making it readable. There's a lot of debate, 1 page, 2 page. I don't really mind a 2-page resume as long as, again, it's readable. If there's just so many sentences and letters and information on the front page, and it's just hard to process, I'm going to have a tough time looking at that. I'm not going to be pleased with that. I'm a big fan of seeing that you've actually had other jobs and you can hold a job. There's some folks out there who say, hey, just put your physical therapy stuff down. Nobody really wants to know about your summer camp jobs, but I disagree with that. I want to know what kind of skills you have. I want to know, can you juggle a busy environment? Do you have work ethic? Are you going to show up on time? I really don't want to teach you how to come into work on time. I really don't want to teach it, jokingly say, tie your shoes. Like, this is a professional environment. I want to know that you've held jobs before and that you've learned how to show up and be ready to work on time, ready to go. I find that customer service is just such a huge part of what we do. The first few years I was a physical therapist, I took every Con Ed class I could get my hands on, doing residency work, all the rest of it. Come to find out, customer service is just as important, if not more important, than all of those technical skills. We need to be really, really great at managing people's experiences. And I think that having the ability to teach is a huge asset. I think anybody that's done work as a coach or they've TA'd a class, whatever it might be, summer camp, working with kids and playing soccer, you grew up playing soccer, and so then you give back in the summers and you're involved. Like, whatever that story is, I think those are really important skills to be able to talk about, and find a way to put those on your resume and be willing to talk about them. Those are the kinds of things I really want you to work into those stories with those open-end questions that we started off with. I love baristas. Somebody that's done that really can juggle a million things at once with beeping noises and chaos and decaffeinated people that are hangry, right? Like, that's fantastic. Anybody that can survive being a barista. We've got Nordstrom's out here, really, really well known for no matter what the customer is, right? They've got amazing training programs for customer service. I love that. And again, any sort of coaching or teaching roles, super important. I was talking with a guy the other day on the mock interviews that PT's like a second career, and he was one of these guys going around doing all sorts of what you might call dirty jobs, working in construction, working in painting, working in all sorts of very different, very physical jobs. And so I was trying to get him to think about how would, what skills did he learn from those jobs that would carry over, right? And again, talk about work ethic, talk about showing up to a difficult situation, talk about tremendous pressures. I know that guy's done those other jobs for years and years and years. He's going to step into an outpatient clinic, go, oh, there's a piece of cake, right? So finding a way to work those into your discussions, I think is super valuable. All right. I'm not sure how long we've been going on here, but I feel like I'm talking really fast. Hopefully it's a reasonable amount of time. But this is my last big slide. A few other little tips and tricks to go over. I'm a big fan of a good handshake. Walk in person, give somebody a good handshake, look them right in the eye, give them a smile, all the same things that you would want to do with a new patient to make a connection and let them know that you're there to support them, right? These old school human being 101 interaction skills, I think, are still super important. Posture. Now, come on, we're physical therapists, right? So if you come in and you're slouching, like, tells me that you're maybe not all that into it, tells me that you're not that excited, or maybe you're super nervous. So I'm learning a little bit about you that way. But then also, just like, come on, how are you going to represent our profession well if you're not good at sitting up straight? So come on, good posture. Again, a little like a handshake. This might seem a little silly, but I love a follow-up note. Bring a couple of thank you cards with you, and before you exit the building, jot down a couple of thoughts about the interview and hand them to the receptionist to hand back to the interviewer. Get home and pop on your computer and write a sentence or two and say thank you. Those kinds of things are just super, super, super important, and go a long ways for me remembering. If it comes down to 2 or 3 top candidates and I'm trying to pick who's best, I'm going to remember who had the good handshake, who looked me right in the eye, who followed up with a note. Those things do make a difference. Big fan of asking for a working interview. If you can shadow a clinic for a couple hours, spend some time there, spend time with a couple of different clinicians. Number one, you're going to get a real quick feel for what the vibe is like in a clinic. As soon as you walk in, you spend a little bit of time in there. Is everybody nervous? Is everybody tense? Or are they teasing each other? Are they bantering? Are they joking around? Are the patients smiling? Or is everybody just busy getting their work done? Makes a big difference on how it feels. And you spend a little time there, you'll know right away. You can also, pull a therapist off. They hand a patient off. You got them for a couple minutes. Ask them, individually, how do you like working here? How's Doug as a boss? How long have you been here? What do you like? What don't you like? And feel free. If I'm going to have you into my clinic, I'm going to be real proud to have you come in and spend time in my clinic, because we've built something that I think is really special there. If you ask for a working interview, we don't really do that. That's not really our thing. I would pay attention to that, and I would think maybe twice about accepting a job from them. Last, to wrap up, a funny little saying: I hire for personality and I train for performance. Again, to kind of sum it all up, we can teach physical therapy. You've learned a fair amount at school. We have lots of ways to educate you further, whether that's through continuing education courses and residencies. Some of that's, our organization has a lot of those things to offer. Wherever you end up, people can learn the skills of physical therapy. But again, who are you? What is your personality like? Now, personally, I'm a very classic introvert. It took me a long time to be able to do presentations like this without my heart jumping out of my chest. I get nervous easily. But the reality is that I work in in a clinic with other human beings, and I need to be able to show up to my patients and be present and be vocal and connect with them on some level. And that takes a certain amount of being up and engaged. And so, right, as you go into these interviews, keep that in mind. If you're a quieter person, maybe a little bit more timid, like, come out of your shell for these interviews. It's important. If you can't come out of your shell, if you can't kind of present a personality and connect and tell stories and share and be authentic, and I don't really get a feel for who you are, I'm going to struggle. But I know I can teach the physical therapy side, but I really need to know who you are on the personality side. So, kind of in summary, again, know the overarching goal is for you to get a job, but it's also for you to get a really good fit, someplace that you want to be for more than a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Like, it doesn't have to be your forever job, but can you see yourself settling in here for a year or 2 or 5 and really taking advantage of that organization and all they have to offer? That's really what we want for you, and that's what we want for ourselves selfishly. Absolutely. Again, be prepared. Know what kind of questions we're going to ask. Practice those question answer sessions. Do what it takes so that you are really ready to go. But then also be prepared with questions that you have for us. Hit us with technical questions. What's your productivity like? What's your scheduling like? What's your culture like? Know what questions are important to you, and bring in your list if you need to. I think that's great. I show up with my list of questions. You can bring in your list of questions. I think that's great. Again, I'm really hopeful you've got this message. Be genuine, be authentic, be you. You're going to, if you try to answer what you think we want to hear, you're going to end up with a job offer for a place that really wasn't that great for you in the long run anyway. Be choosy. We're trying to be choosy. We all want to find a fit that lasts. Again, know what you need. What's most important to you? Is it salary? Is it benefits? Is it culture? Is it a big clinic? Is it a small clinic? Is it a national company so you can move and bounce around between locations, someplace like Confluent Health? Do you want to be in a very small mom and pop situation? Do you want to be in a hospital? What's important to you? Really do some introspection and think of that before you step in the door. And remember some of those final details. Again, the silly little things: sitting up straight, smiling, being engaged, and being your genuine true self. And that's it for me. I thank you all for taking the time this evening to spend a few minutes with us, and hopefully you picked up a few things, and that was helpful for you all.